good job. All right, this calls to order the Monday, October 30th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. First item of business is the approval of the minutes from the meeting held on September 25th, 2023. Is there a discussion or a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the meeting held September 25th, 2023.
I'd second that motion.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item of business is item 2, old business. There is none. Next item is item 3, new business. Site plan for 5809 Alhambra Drive, Fairway, Kansas, submitted by Joel Perry of Indwell Architecture and Design on behalf of property owners John Allen and Allison Smith for solar energy system, in addition with exception requests for the following. Number 1, roofing materials, solar tiles. 2, minimum side setback. And 3, required green space. Basil, will you please provide us an update or a report?
Yes, I'll let the report stand as submitted. They are seeking three exceptions. One is for the side setback. They are non-conforming, legal non-conforming, about 9 inch, and they are keeping that setback with the addition at 9 inch. Staff do recommend approval of that setback. The second exception is for the green space. The required is 63.7%, and what they submitted was 60.1 as far as an exception. Staff does not recommend that exception. And as far as the primary roofing material, staff does not accept that request either. I reached out, and you guys have a copy of the email I got from ICC. They used to have an evaluation report for the material, and ICC canceled that evaluation report, and they're not supporting that material. The applicant, I reached out for more information. The applicant sent me a different house application. I'm not sure where it was, but I gave you a copy for what they did some testing on them, and so they do have approval for the material. They did some ASTM, a UL listing testing on the tiles itself. And I'm open to questions.
So to confirm, the green space, they did not meet the requirement. The original,
No, the original was over the requirement, and they're increasing the nonconformity.
okay. All right, is there any questions for staff?
Well, I guess I'm wondering on those roof panels. Did they provide any samples or any other information? I mean, it just seems...
No, the only information they sent was for a layout of a house that does not match the layout of this house. So the only thing, I didn't think it was, I mean, it had nothing. It's electrical, the paneling, the wiring, nothing regarding the installation of the material or how it's going to be constructed in the field. So it was really material that did not, I felt that did not, it was not going to help you guys. But I put the last sheet of that, what they send me, just to show you that they did some testing on that paneling.
So I assume our code does not address these types of materials. It probably says acceptable roofing materials are asphalt, shingles, and other things like that.
That is correct. So it's a non-approved material, and it's not an approved material in the ICC code book, the residential code book. And typically, if you have something like that, then they'll go and reach out and get an evaluation report. So they had 2 of them, and both of them were canceled by ICC for some reason or another. What I heard, there were a couple of fires in California, and there are lawsuits, again, between Tesla and the installer. They're thinking the installer did not install it right. But
So does this fall at all under an observed electrical code that the city uses?
Yes, I mean, it's a solar system, so.
And so,
The exception, it's not the solar that's we're concerned of, it's the roofing material that we're concerned of.
If I could just add, if anyone's seen the Tesla, it's actually the roof shingle. It's not something mounted on top of the roof, it's the shingle itself. So all solar energy systems have to come to Planning Commission for review. But because this is the actual roofing material, it would need an exception. When we looked at roofing materials at the code a few years ago, we just put in that planning could grant an exception because we knew technology was always changing. And, you know, we listed the ones that were approved, but planning could evaluate newer materials on an as, you know.
so yeah, it's kind of like, see it as two things. One, I've seen pictures of these, and I believe they're intended to be designed to look like conventional building materials.
That is correct, so they have like 4 styles that you can use, like
Yeah.
a terracotta style, a metal style, shingle style, so whatever the applicant wants.
Yeah, so just to clarify, what we're approving is the aesthetics of the material itself, not necessarily its fitness for safety and other code compliance.
That
As
is
an
correct.
electrical solar panel,
That
is
is
that correct? Okay.
But should that not be a separate discussion of its own? I mean, the package seemed pretty light on its
Well, that's
electrical
what I
components.
guess that's what I'm asking, I guess, is this, I don't know that this council is intended to approve the electrical code compliance of the material, or we are. That's what maybe I'm asking. I
Well,
think we're
it's-
just
it's
approving the
both.
aesthetics.
It's the roofing material and it's a solar system. But they did not give me a design for the house, so I couldn't give you any info for the specific house.
I guess from a legal standpoint, are we supposed to evaluate the electrical? Or is that, where would that fall under?
No, you have the criteria that you consider, and those should be in your packet. That's what you're considering. Those kinds of building code issues are building inspection department related. And I would note too that, and you probably, most of you, I'm not sure if everybody was on at the time, but we recently passed amendments to the code to allow solar energy systems. So there isn't an issue with whether or not those are allowed. I mean, there's certain rules. This one obviously meets it because the provision about solar energy systems talks about how they need to be incorporated into a building, and that does. But your criteria for review of a site plan are what would apply.
So I guess that would fall back to Basel to determine whether they're allowed to, or whether they meet the electrical code. Sorry, Basel, I'm not trying to put it back on you. but-
Again, I did not get any info for a site-specific design for the system.
So you would expect that to be
The
submitted?
previous application that came in front of you guys, we got a full system for the house, and you guys approved
Yeah.
that. This one, I was giving a different site, so I didn't think it needed to be part of the package.
Sure.
Because
that's
I
fine.
reached out to the applicant, and that's what I got, so I didn't feel it's necessary to even go to that portion because it's for a different house. So the electrical was sized for a different house, and that's why I kept it out of the packet.
So, and that makes sense. I guess the procedure moving forward, so we would address the aesthetics of the roof material today. Let's say we did approve it. They'd still have to submit the solar piece later. And
That
then
is
that would come
correct.
back to us because we're supposed to review solar, correct?
That's right.
But,
It wouldn't need to come back. I mean, if you have samples, I don't think it would need to come back. There's typical conditions about having to submit plans and having to comply with all code requirements, and the building code, other incorporated technical codes, so that would cover that.
okay. So then it would be up to the building inspection whether it's an acceptable installation and material.
For safety purposes.
Okay, are we all clear
So
on
if we
that?
know what these shingles look like, then we could approve them on the basis that they look like they should, basically. So do we know what they look like?
We can pull up the Tesla site if you'd like on the.
Does their architect here, maybe he could give us a little rundown on what this is about and why?
Would you please come forward and state your name and address for the record? And hopefully you have a picture with you.
I sent several images to Basil. Joel Perry and Will Architecture. We're at 4617 West 9th Street.
So why did you select this type of roofing panels?
I can take that one.
Will you please state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, Sean Allen Smith, 5809 Alhambra, in Fairway. And, so on the roof, we are coming, because definitely interested in putting in a solar roof. Primarily interested in Tesla because of the battery system, for the house, and then that is the primary reason. And doing research on solar roofs, they were almost every website number one in terms of quality and with the battery system that goes with it. So that was the reason for Tesla. We are open to other solar roof options, but went with Tesla first because of that reason. The reality is we're not sure. Part of the reason we maybe don't have all the information for you today around the packet is the demand for these is so high that we're waiting for the actual roofer. There's only, I think, 2 certified roofers in the city that can do Tesla roofs. We're in contact with one of them and on their list, but we're not sure that if we do this project, they will be able to meet the same timeline that we'll need for our house to be complete. So we may not end up with a Tesla roof just because of that reason. We're not going to sit with plywood on there waiting for a Tesla roof to be installed. So we wanted to come and mostly get the request for the solar exception. And then Basil discovered there were some concerns with the tiles, which was good for us to know because we had not looked into any of that at this point. So that was really where we're at. We're actually pursuing potentially other solar roof options in case there is the unavailability of the Tesla roof right now. But it was the battery system that was of most interest to us.
So do you have a sample of what the roof tile would look like? I mean, we're kind of trying to evaluate something we never seen,
I
never
don't have a
touched.
physical sample today, but I can get one for you.
And then they really do look like this. There's one, I don't know which one that was shared by Joel in the packet, but there's one in Prairie Village right around 67th Street, so it's not quite neighboring Fairway, but it's really close, that went up that we went and drove by just so we could make sure we thought it looked good and something we wanted to put on our house. So there is one there, and it really looks exactly like this. You cannot tell which ones are solar panels and which ones are tiles. It's slick, it's black, and I haven't seen any others that Basil mentioned in terms of some of the other styles. We were just looking for the standard tile, like what's on the screen, but we're really open to feedback on that.
This is from the Tesla website, so we just pulled it up so you could see what the shingles look like.
And I did reach out to the other cities. Leewood actually added it into, they got approval through Planning Commission as an approved material, but that's the only city that has it. I reached out to Mission Hills, Lenexa, Overland Park, Prairie Village. That is correct. They have one installed, and supposedly there's another one that has not been installed yet.
Do they, in real life, do they look like a solar panel on the outside? Are they granular covered? Are they shiny? Are they reflective? I mean,
They're matte.
you're asking us to approve something that we don't know what it looks like or what it even does.
It's a good question. They look a little more like slate than they do like a solar panel. It's a good rendition in terms of what they are.
They're not shiny, they're
They're
matte.
not shiny, they're matte.
Yeah, they're almost like a carbon fiber material. But again, ICC canceled the evaluation report for it as a material.
So as far as them canceling that, right? So it's like a whole system, right? Like looks like the glass sits on top of the module itself, right? I'm just looking at this handout here and trying to understand how it's all. Is
It
it
looks
one
like a
piece?
shingle, and
Okay.
they click together, and then some of them are not electrical, so, but they match the material, so some will generate power, some will not, depending on, because once they analyze if there's shade, why put it there, because it's not gonna generate
Sure.
power.
Um,
So they have the two models, one is actual generating power, and the other one is not.
Gotcha.
But again, I mean, even with what they submitted to me, it does not talk about installation or the underlayment material. From reaching out to ICC, they have their own underlayment material, like ice and water protection.
Sure.
So it's not a standard, so it's a whole system, but I'm assuming Tesla's pretty guarded. Until somebody pays, they're not gonna send any info.
Yeah, I wasn't able to dig up any like UL certifications or anything for the panel either, which I would kind of expect to see. I see that they say they're meeting a couple of the
Yeah,
standard
but I
ones.
think some of those UL and, I think those are for impact resistance.
Yeah, they test for a few different things
So
and the
they
fire
are-
side of things.
They are standard UL testing systems. So it's like for impact resistant, wind resistance, so they're meeting those. But
Yeah.
typically on those, I mean, once you get the evaluation report, that's what grants you the installation of it. And since they canceled that, I mean,
Right. Right.
as a staff, I'm opposed to it.
I think ultimately, though, we're here to review if we approve of the aesthetics, and then we can defer to you about whether it's an acceptable product. Is that what I'm hearing? Because ultimately, I mean, if they produce a different product other than Tesla product, then it might have an ICC, or it might have a different ASTM or UL, which would show that it's adequate. So we just have to discuss whether we approve the aesthetics of the shingle.
So the end of this results in them coming back for an electrical review on the solar system itself.
Well, we talked about that. I guess we could ask that question again, but I think our understanding was that Basel would then review that. So we wouldn't
We
necessarily.
would have the option, we could either require them to come back and we could review it, and then Basel could give it the final sign-off, or we could just say,
Well,
Basel do it.
is it necessarily our jurisdiction to monitor like the engineering of the system? I mean, generally we're more about the aesthetics. I mean, I would love to just analyze all the engineering of our projects, but we don't do that normally.
Well, I don't want to do that either, but I mean, I guess it's a jump to go from having no samples, nothing to look at, just a photograph on the website on a cloudy day. I can't tell, if this is going to be objectionable to other people's houses, if it's going to reflect back, or if it's even going to look good. I mean,
Well, and that's fine. We can ask for more information on that. I'm just saying we wouldn't ask for a full solar package to review the electrical details.
I mean, if it were standard solar panels and everything, I would agree. But solar roofs, I don't know. That's kind of a different ballgame, in my opinion. But
The other question that pops, I mean, if you guys want to grant it as an approved material for future.
I think we definitely need
that
to look
could be a
into it. I mean,
discussion for
this is going to
another
be
day,
more commonly
another
submitted.
meeting.
well, if it can't even meet requirements by the different licensing organizations, I don't see how we could give an approval on it. I mean, now they say they're still doing research because they don't know either. So I don't know, I mean, we're kind of in a position of, I mean, we've already said solar roofs are okay, but this is something totally different. I mean, I don't even know how to approach it.
You could continue it if you like, so that you could go and look at some of the properties that have it installed to see some samples, or for them to bring a sample. That's an option too.
Well, I mean, they say they're still researching. They don't know. It may not be the Tesla system. You may not even be able to get the Tesla system.
It's definitely the preferred, but again, it's more for the battery than it was the tile. And just because it is the standard. If you look at roofs, solar roofs, Tesla is the #1 standard. So I think it's hard from that perspective. But I don't know if we can get a sample. We can try to get a sample. I don't know if Tesla has those, but we're open to other options.
Get one from Rebecca
You
at
think you can get one?
the roofing company, yeah.
Yeah.
They've been very
I mean,
helpful.
be happy to do that, because I know we're asking for something that's kind of new.
And now, would the whole roof be this solar type panel front and back, or would it just be where you get the sun exposures?
The whole roof will look exactly the same, and you won't be able to tell which ones are solar tiles and which ones are non-solar tiles. And they'll install as many solar tiles as we need to meet our power requirements based on sunlight and those kind of things. So it could be in one part of the house, the entire thing is solar panels, and in others, it's none. It's all depending on how much sunlight and wattage. Which is what's kind of cool about it, they're just invisible. But we're open to feedback on this one and may look at a different roof if you're concerned about the.
John Allen, I got a quick question.
Yeah.
Are you doing the addition regardless if you do the roof?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so that's the reason that we were doing this, was we were hoping to do it at the same time. The roof wasn't the impetus, the addition was the impetus.
Is the solar system go on the addition roof or the existing roof? All of it, okay.
It will all be the same.
So it's gotta be the whole
roof
thing.
regardless.
All right.
So if you were to not approve the solar roof, we would just move forward with the regular roof on the addition.
Okay.
Do all the trees stay in place? Looks like there's a tree that's dashed on plan here.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Right, well, we didn't have any trees that numbered, did we?
There was one smaller tree, I think, in the back.
Okay.
It wasn't
Will you come up to the microphone when you guys are talking? Thank you.
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but I think there was one smaller tree. I think it was a 3 or 6 inch caliper tree in the back.
Okay. I was just seeing on the drainage plan, it
Yeah.
looked like there was a larger street tree that was dashed, but it wasn't noted, so I just wasn't sure. if
Yeah,
that was-
nothing affected in the front.
Okay.
And I would,
One other addition as far as the watershed analysis, it does call for a detention basin, and it's not shown on the plot plan they submitted. But that could be, I can require that, the design of it with the permit application.
Will you please come forward to the microphone and explain to us where we can find it?
and I would just like to clarify, I think if the planning were to approve the Tesla, if they don't get it and they go with a different solar system, they would have to come back for that solar system also, because it's not going to be the same as the Tesla. I'm not aware of
How
it.
exactly does that work, just talking out loud? So if we approved like an asphalt shingle or a composite shingle, we wouldn't specifically give a product?
I guess the way I see the difference in this one is the solar system is the roofing shingle versus the other solar energy systems, which are mounted on the roof. And what I understood that planning wanted was to evaluate how that looked. You know, was it meeting, not exceeding like the projection from the roof and things like that. So that was my understanding when we added the solar energy language. So this sort of is a totally different horse in that it's the roofing material itself. It is not a system that sits on the roof.
Right. I guess when we require a solar system, though, do we require like, what is the requirement again? Do we have to have full plans and full product data? Or is it, I guess they have submitted actual panels in the past and they have to use those panels they submit. Is that correct?
The code isn't that specific. It would be whatever Basel would require. There are some requirements that are just about mechanical piping, electrical conduits, motors and similar items must be concealed. I mean, there's requirements about the 6-inch standoff that was mentioned
The-
as the max, those kinds of things. That's
Usually, you need the fire access, so you need like 2-point ladders to the roof, and then you have that 3-foot for firefighters to walk around the panel system. So that's another thing we typically look at in a regular solar panel system.
With the
So
prior,
there are some NFPA requirement that kicks in.
with the prior applications, they all included a roofing plan and the layout of the panels on it. So you knew what was street facing, what was side facing, rear. So and that's what he was indicating earlier when they submitted a site plan with the roofing. It was for a different house. It wasn't for this house.
Okay. So regardless, if we approve the material, we'd still need to see a site plan showing the panels. Is that what I'm hearing?
If there
Again, this is different because it is literally the roofing shingle. So it's all over the house, just like a comp roof. It's everywhere.
Maybe,
Well, but-
maybe a simpler way to think of it is as if they came to us with a slate roof and said, I would like to approve this slate roof. The fact that it's a solar panel as well is sort of part of that. If they went with a substantially different looking roof, not that slate or something, it'd be something else, I imagine then it would require additional approval. Or if they went to a conventional material and then had regular solar panels, that would also be a change. So what we'd be approving is the equivalent of saying this slate roof is acceptable, right? Which I don't know if that's what it is. We probably could do that if that's actually what it is.
And again, part of Tesla, you can get a slate roof that's a solar system. So
Yeah, so the fact that it doesn't really fall within the confines of a solar, what our code refers to as a solar panel is not really that. It's a roofing material, so we'd be approving something that looks like it's slate. Pretend it's not a solar panel at all. It's just a slate roof. So are we approving that or not is, I think, the question. And then if it looks substantially different than what's approved, then that would have to be approved again, right?
You could also, make it an alternative if it's or an alternative material that complies with the code. That way it wouldn't have to come back. But if they changed the solar energy system, then they would have to come back. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it'd be either this or something that's already in the code. You can change it to that without coming back to us, right?
I'm assuming that in Tesla's design, they would have to meet the fire regulations, like you were mentioning. There had to be access to it. There had to be walkways to get up there to fight the fires and all those kind of things. I mean,
again, this is a roofing material. So part of that sheet I put in front of you is a UL testing that they tested for impact, and so it passed that material testing. But whatever happened through that evaluation report, which typically an ICC evaluation report include the installation, the design, it's all included in that evaluation report. Something happened that ICC decided we're not supporting that material any longer.
Well, but
I
each
did not
layout's
get
going to
an
be
answer
different,
for
right?
that.
Each layout would be different for each roof. So to the answer about the fire and the access
That's
and
right.
everything, that would
So,
be
like,
based on an engineer doing that design.
Even regular roofing material usually has an ICC evaluation report. And then after a couple of cycles, then it will be part of the ICC residential code, that it's an approved material. So that's where we are.
well, do we need to say if we're going to approve a solar roof shingle like this, that it has to meet ICC requirements? Or
Typically, yes. I mean,
Uniform Building Code requirements, or some basic requirements that? as
yeah,
tested?
I mean, if you look at it, it's a roof shingle material. Let's forget about the solar, non-solar. The material itself right now has been canceled by ICC as a roofing material. So that's where we are.
But we don't know why.
Does the
Yes.
does the building code that's in force in Fairway require ICC approval for this material?
Typically, yes. I mean, like siding material, when they come and ask for, I typically will go out and see or check. But usually, once they reference an ICC evaluation report, you go to the website or the evaluation report, you'll see that report. On this one, when I searched both of them, that's why I reached out to ICC to see why it's not coming up.
Well, I would think that our approval probably goes without saying. I think it's implied that whatever is used to build the house has to meet the building code. So we don't need to determine whether or not this meets the building code in this meeting. We need to determine if it meets our requirements for aesthetics, and then the building official will determine when it's installed whether or not it meets the code. And it may not. I mean, that's a risk, I guess, is the building official may say you can't install this because it doesn't meet X, Y, and Z requirements that are in the building code. But I don't think that's for us to determine.
Agreed. So I guess.
Yeah, and that'd be on the onus of the builder and the owner to come up with a product that would meet those requirements, or go back to a composition shingle or some other solar system.
So I guess, is anyone here comfortable approving the material without seeing a sample? Or would that particular piece need to be continued anyways?
I'm comfortable approving it without a sample. I think it looks better than a regular roof with solar panels on it. That's my opinion.
It's probably not going to make much difference.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion. I've looked online at the photos and some different applications. Sunlight, shade, it does appear to be like almost like a contemporary slate look from the one I'm seeing. They do have some other ones that are more of like a traditional tiles, like slate tile, but all of them looked really nice. I would be agreeing that aesthetically it's pleasing.
Okay. So.
Still have the other issue of.
Well, yeah, that's what I was getting at. So, I mean, if we're okay with that piece, then why don't we talk about the other two items and then we can come back to that. So I guess the next item would be the green space. Any discussion on that?
Again, the watershed does recommend installing a detention basin, but on the plans, there is no basin shown.
We're comfortable if you wanted to make that a requirement. We plan to put it in regardless, so if you wanted to make that a requirement that Basel had to check on, we're going to do it anyway.
Okay. I guess from my perspective, I mean, they were already not meeting the green space when they, just as it is now, so they already can't meet the green space.
My opinion is they're at above the 60%, which has sort of been where we've justified it being okay. So
And I can add one note, the original came at 58 and they revised it to go above 60. So the original submittal came at 58%.
Well, I agree with your comments that that's where we've kind of set our baseline. I mean, it seems, the people who've come in have a large house, want a big deck and a pool and all that. We said, we could live with it if we can get it down to 60%. And these folks have kind of done that. I mean, we seem to abuse that higher rating on a regular basis, but, I kind of feel like we can't restrict Fairway residents who are trying to do an improvement on their project if they can stay within that 60% green space.
I also feel like, Ron, though, that exception's been made on like these bigger lots, like this size, and the bigger lots. The smaller lots, like the 7,000 to 8,000 square foot lots, we haven't made the exception as much because it's much more space.
Right. Well, with the larger lots, right.
Right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the limit on the 7,800 square foot lots is 60%. Am I right?
Anything below 10,000 is 60%.
Yeah. It only becomes more restrictive on the larger lots.
I'm not opposed. I would be interested to see a heat map of where we approve and where we don't approve green space exceptions, I guess, because I'm vaguely remembering various arguments back and forth about approving them or not approving them. So I'm trying to remember our last one, but I remember it being fairly close to the limit, and we still denied it. So.
Since I started here, one project below 10,000 got approved, and then all the rest are above the 10,000.
That was on Del Mar, right? The big one?
I think so, yeah.
All right, is there any more discussion on the green space? All right, what about the non-conforming side setback? Any discussion on that?
I had a quick question for the applicant. Did you guys, is your neighbor, I'm assuming your neighbors are cool with this stuff? You guys had some conversations, they're cool with?
Will you please come up to the microphone? State your name and address for the record.
I might need to be, my name is Allison Smith, sorry, I'm 5809 Alhambra. Is the setback that side that's non-conforming? Okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't sure. We actually haven't talked to them yet. We wanted to make sure we were for sure going to move forward, but that was one of the reasons we got a watershed, and we would want to, share all of that evaluation with them, make sure they were comfortable. They're great neighbors. They're a teacher out at my kid's school, so we want to remain friendly and certainly made the addition size with that in mind.
Okay, and just so I understand to clarify this too, is the exception just the first part where they hook onto this and then it jogs in back to the east, Basil, or is it the entire length?
Okay, the exception is the existing encroach about 9-inch.
Right.
And then the addition encroach 9-inch, then it goes back because they want to meet the facade requirement.
Okay.
And then it goes back and encroach 9-inch.
Okay, I got you. All right. So it maintains the same amount of
It
non-conformance.
maintained the same amount of nonconformity.
Okay, thank you.
So any discussion on the setback?
My opinion is, since it's already legally non-conforming and they're not making it any worse, that I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Angle makes it a little bit difficult, so they're stepping it back to accommodate them.
Okay, so I feel like we have a consensus on the side setback and the green space. Do we need to discuss the roofing anymore? Or has everyone made a decision on that?
I'm not entirely sure, but I guess I need to hear a little more argument. I guess I'm not sure how we can divorce the material from the solar system itself, right? Because, I think that's the basis of the argument is we're just going to ignore the solar side and approve what the looks of it are. But, it's a combo unit, and if the ICC has not only not issued one, but they canceled one that already existed, that, to me, says something's going on there that should be concerning, I guess. I understand we're not the code arbiters, but
I guess I don't
that
want to
far.
take on the liability of being responsible for the safety of any material that's approved, right? So if another material causes a fire or something, I don't think it should be our responsibility.
True.
How about if we were to approve it pending, once the owner and the architect have settled on a material that they want to use, that they would resubmit it for code review and just an aesthetic review from the planning commission. That way it wouldn't stop their progress. It sounds like they're still trying to make up their mind anyway without slowing anybody down.
And if we move forward, there would be a technical document, a set of drawings, electrical diagrams, all of those things that go with the roof specific to the house. A lot of the conversation that Basil and I were having were, how is this wired up? So the document that was submitted was not from Tesla, but from a local roofing installer that has installed this on other projects. So they sent a wiring diagram just so that we could see how that wiring works. And it does have cutoffs. It has safety features that are built into the system. And I think if they're installed properly, you probably have very few electrical problems. I think if they maybe aren't, that may be where there were some issues. The real work of the roof is done in the membrane system that's actually below the shingle. So it's not a leaking issue or anything like that. They're real solid from a roofing material standpoint. Solar, they work like any other solar panel. They're wired the same way, for whatever that's worth. The Powerwall system that John Allen was talking about allows you to collect that energy over the day when you get a lot of sun and then use it at night when you actually need the loading. Conventional systems aren't allowing you to do that. You're generating power when you're not using it, so it's a really smart system.
Where does this power panel go?
Garage usually.
In the garage?
Yeah.
Inside?
Or buy a panel, but generally in a garage. And it's about 2 foot by 3 foot tall and 6-8 inches deep. It's not a very big system.
Probably weighs about 8,000 pounds.
Probably.
We'll have to have a structural analysis here.
There you go. Yeah. Well, yeah, never mind.
So we could approve or disapprove the material, and then, let's say we approved it, we could then require that when they select the final material, they bring it back to us with a full, complete solar package, like we would expect with any other solar package. Could we do that?
If you want to see it again, yes.
Okay. Would that be acceptable?
Works for me.
So we would say we're approving the concept of a solar panel roof, but we would need final approval of the actual panel and roof selected and layout.
Sounds great. Who's going to make the motion on this one?
Wendy did really
So-
good job articulating that.
That's why I'm the chair. That's your turn.
Perhaps may I suggest we do a preliminary, could we do a preliminary approval of the roofing material? That way they know they have to come back for the final approval. It's a preliminary approval. And then the other two would just be, do you want separate motions for it? Okay.
But we could do a final approval for the other two items and just the preliminary for the roof. Okay.
Let me try.
Yeah, go for it.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the site plan at 5809 Alhambra Drive and provide final approval for the side setback exception and the required green space exception and preliminary approval for the material solar tiles as a concept where they will return with a final selection and plans.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you.
Good job, Wendy.
You sounded like you could have been an attorney.
Still a little confused. All right, next item of business is item 4, additional business. The next meeting date will be November 27th, 2023, which is after Thanksgiving, right? So if you're not going to be here, please.
That is correct. This is the Monday following the Thanksgiving holiday.
Okay. And do we have any applications?
We have one application for a generator installed on the site installed
All right.
on Alhambra.
Last order of business, is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Meeting adjourned.